It feels like just one day the world was all about almond milk and soy milk. And then literally overnight, bam, oat milk was just everywhere, in every coffee shop, taking over the grocery store shelves. It was a complete takeover.
So, what's the deal? Did we all just get a memo to switch to oats, or is there a little more going on behind the scenes? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive deep and get to the bottom of the great oat milk phenomenon.
Get ready for this number, 303%. I'm not kidding. That's how much oat milk sales shot up in the US in just a single year between 2019 and 2020. This wasn't a slow trend. This was an absolute market explosion. So, let's start right at the beginning of this incredible boom. Because this wasn't some ancient recipe we just rediscovered. No, this was a pretty modern invention that just happened to time its entrance perfectly.
So believe it or not, this whole thing started way back in the 90s with a Swedish scientist named Rickard Oste. But for decades, it was pretty niche. Then, in 2018, something just clicked. Demand surged so fast there were actual shortages. You couldn't find it. By 2020, it had already jumped past soy to become the #2 plant milk in America. And then the big one. In 2021, the biggest name in the game, Oatly, went public for a mind-boggling $13 billion. So what on earth happened in just those few years? To really get the why behind this whole craze, we have to go to ground zero, the place where most of us probably had our very first sip, the coffee shop. This is where the magic really started. And this quote from a pro barista, Ivan Perez, just says it all. See, other plant milks, they could be a little difficult, right? They'd curdle, or they were too watery, or they just tasted off. But oat milk? It just worked. And like Ivan says, it didn't just taste great, you could actually make that beautiful velvety latte art with it. So what's the secret sauce here? How did this simple drink made from oats and water finally crack the code that all these other plant milks had been struggling for years? Well, the answer is in this little phrase right here, barista grade. And here's the big reveal. The oat milk you're getting in your latte isn't just oats and water. They had a secret ingredient, usually some kind of vegetable oil. And that right there is the key. Those added fats are what let it steam and froth up into that perfect, silky microfoam that makes a latte, well, a latte. And this ability to perfectly mimic dairy milk, it was an absolute game changer. It made the switch from cow's milk totally seamless. You didn't feel like you were sacrificing anything. In fact, for a lot of people, it was a major upgrade. Okay, so taste and texture got oat milk in the door, but its reputation as the green milk, that's what really helped it kick the door down and take over. So let's dig into the environmental story. And wow, this chart tells a pretty shocking story. To get just one glass of dairy milk, you need a whopping 131 liters of water. And almond milk, which used to be the plant-based champion, still a pretty thirsty 74 liters. But oat milk, just 9. 9 liters, the difference is just huge. And the story is just as dramatic when you look at greenhouse gas emissions. Cow's milk is by far the biggest offender. Oat milk, on the other hand, is a real lightweight, right down there with almond milk. So you've got this amazing 1-2 punch. It tastes great, and it has a tiny environmental footprint. It's really no wonder it took off like a rocket. Okay, so it's better in your latte, and it's better for the planet. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. There's one more really important question we need to answer. What are we actually putting in our bodies? Let's talk nutrition. And this is where things get really, really interesting. We've established that oat milk is a big win for the environment. But is it a win for our health? Is it a true nutritional stand-in for dairy, or is it something else entirely? So if you put them head to head, you start to see some fascinating trade-offs. Oat milk has less than half the protein of cow's milk, which is a pretty big deal if you're counting on it for that. On the other hand, it actually has fiber, which dairy has 0 of, and it has quite a bit less sugar. So right away, you can see it's not a simple one-for-one swap. But the story goes so much deeper than just the total grams of protein. This chart from a study in the journal Frontiers in Nutrition is a real eye-opener. So think of protein like a necklace made of little beads. Some of those beads, the red ones here, are essential amino acids. Our bodies can't make them, so we have to get them from food. As you can see, milk is like this long, beautiful necklace, just packed with those crucial red beads. Oat milk, it's a much shorter necklace, with a lot fewer of those essential beads. And the scientists who did this study, they really didn't mince words. They basically said that when you look at protein quality, all the plant-based drinks they studied are not real alternatives to milk. So what's the big takeaway here? It means if you just swap out your milk for oat milk without thinking about it, you could be accidentally creating some pretty big nutritional gaps in your diet. Okay, this brings us to our final stop on this journey, and maybe the most surprising part of the whole story. We've already seen that the magic of oat milk isn't just about the oats themselves, so what else is actually hiding inside that carton? Ever read the ingredient list and seen this name? Dipotassium phosphate? This little-known additive is actually a huge part of the oat milk success story. It's the key ingredient that stops it from curdling in hot coffee and gives it that smooth, creamy texture we all love. So what the heck is this stuff? It's basically a type of salt that's manufactured from phosphate rock. And while the FDA gives it the green light, they call it generally recognized as safe, some researchers are starting to raise their eyebrows about how much of these additives we're all consuming. There's a but. And here's where that but comes in. A big review in a German medical journal from 2012 raised a pretty serious red flag. They pointed out that unlike the phosphates found naturally in foods, these added inorganic phosphates get absorbed almost completely by our bodies. And for people with certain health issues, like kidney problems, that could be a really big deal. Their conclusion was blunt. The public should be informed that these added phosphates could be damaging to health. So, after all that, where do we land? Oat milk is, without a doubt, a brilliant piece of food engineering. It solved the taste and texture puzzle for plant milks, and it did it with a much, much lighter footprint on the planet. But it's not a simple, clean swap for dairy. It's a complex, processed food with a totally different nutritional profile and additives that, while they work wonders, come with their own set of questions. So the final question isn't really if oat milk is better. It's whether it's just a different choice, a choice that you're now a lot more informed to make. And that's something to think about the next time you order that latte.